Welcome to Wise Move, where we dive into real estate, real life, and real wisdom. I'm your host, Meredith Buckland, a top realtor in the greater Atlanta area with over 12 years of experience. I have had the privilege to help hundreds of clients navigate their moves successfully, while gaining a wealth of wisdom along the way. As Einstein said, wisdom is not a product of schooling, but of the lifelong attempt to acquire it. So join me as I connect with clients, colleagues, and industry experts to discuss market trends, share valuable advice, along with real-life stories that can help make every move a wise move. Today, I am thrilled to be joined by Dr. Shane Miller, co-founder and CEO of New Story Lending and also founder of the Miller Companies. It's a powerhouse in the real estate financial industry in over 36 states. He is a proud U.S. Army veteran, and he has quickly made his mark by leading his company to a $250 million annual loan volume run rate in just 1 year. So his mission was to reimagine the financial services in operations, culturally, experience, and philanthropy. Also breaking the barriers to home ownership. So a variety of backgrounds and topics to discuss. And Dr. Miller, thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much, Meredith. What an awesome introduction. I appreciate that. You said it much better than I ever could, but you please call me Shane.
Okay, good. Yeah, good. I might mess up there, but no, I want to give honor to whom honor is due. And certainly when you've achieved that success, want to make mention of that. And Shane, you've had an inspiring path, and you went from military to now building a national mortgage company. I would love to know, what sparked that transition and maybe how your why has even evolved along the way, if you can share that with us.
Sure. I think that's a great question. So for starters, thank you so much for allowing me to be here with you. It's going to be an awesome conversation. I'm excited. And you've done such a tremendous job in this first 60 seconds, so it's going to be great. But to your question, Meredith, I've always been a serial entrepreneur. I knew at a very young age that it's business, and I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I just didn't know exactly in which vein of industry I wanted to be in. At the age of 9 is really when I first started working in a real capacity. My grandparents, my maternal grandparents, and I can tell that story a little bit later on, are my namesake. So the Miller name, that's how I got my name. So I was extremely close with them. But they had a little meat and three restaurant, as we call it here in the Deep South, where we sold meats and vegetables. At the ripe age of 9 years old, I started working for their restaurant, washing dishes, cooking, serving, eventually ran the cash register, and I really enjoyed working with money. You fast forward to now, I'm in my 40s. I've now been in the banking, housing economy, all things mortgage banking, construction, insurance, anything really in that vein of housing economy is really where I've built my businesses. So I started at 9. You fast forward to now, that's how I got there. I'll be happy to share all the in-between stuff, but that's how it all started, if you will.
Yeah, what a great start, right? You got that kind of opportunity to see business and to work in it. And 9-year-olds don't often get that, especially in our day. So that was a fantastic foundation there. And you then went on to the military. And of course, there's so much in between and life stages, but part of your military had to shape the way your leadership is today. What would you say were the key areas that you took from that time?
Yeah, I think that I obviously gained a lot of knowledge and discipline and resolve in the military. But even prior to the military, I have to give credit because I'll say this, I am the proud product of a single mama. My mom worked extremely hard growing up, made many sacrifices for my siblings and I, and there were plenty of times she did what she did and had to do what she did just to put food on the table. So I would say, I think that really what I've learned from hard work and dedication and that discipline really started at home, watching all the endeavor that my mom had with taking care of us. And then you follow that by, as I got a little bit older, my grandparents, my grandmother and my grandfather, where I got my last name Miller, they were just both tremendous Christian people. And I'm very thankful to have grown up in the church. And that also helped establish my foundation. Relationships is really all in everything we do. And that really helped establish those relationships as I grew. It helped me understand the importance of those relationships. and that discipline and resolve. But the military, of course. So I was in the military. I started out as an enlisted guy earlier on when I was in school. The Army had a great program called the Simultaneous Membership Program, where they allowed you to go to school, but also be part of the military. So I was afforded a great opportunity to work on my education while being in the military. And then I went to Clemson University. Clemson has a great ROTC program, and I was head of the ROTC program there as a cadet, as the cadet battalion commander, if you will. So that was a tremendous leadership opportunity that I got at a young age in college. And then I commissioned as an infantry officer in the Army. So infantry is surrounded by discipline and resolve and physical training and planning and execution and all of the stuff in between. So I fast forwarded very quickly into leadership in both a personal and professional environment, if you will, that taught me many things that I don't know that I would have learned otherwise. So it's been a very fortunate part of my career.
Yeah. And you touched on a couple of really key areas, especially for those of us in business, focused on relationships and focused on also some discipline areas, but relationships really matter, being grounded in that. And that obviously is going to lead the way even in the future for you as you're successful and focused on the important things within that. And then the discipline that it takes to build a company and to continue with it, even in the good times and the bad times, as we all experience. You have built, though, a high-performing team in this is a fast-paced competitive industry. So how do you build that culture while you're also scaling so quickly? The business is growing. How did you keep that balance?
Well, I think it starts with surrounding yourself with the right people. And I have been, again, just incredibly blessed in my life and my career. You know, I started out, as I mentioned to you, Meredith, a moment ago, I'm the proud product of a single mom. And as part of that, we grew up what forgive my expression, but dirt poor, right? And growing up very poor, you learn very quickly that you have to perform. You have to perform. You have to build those relationships to build to that next level. And frankly, to sometimes survive. And I was in an environment growing up that you had to work. You had to do those things just to frankly survive. And that teaches you at a very young age the value of discipline and the value of work. But in those relationships, I think through my fate, through the people in my life, my mom, my grandparents, and just some wonderful people, I've been able to secure great relationships that have helped me as I've continued growing these businesses. I learned the value probably 5 years ago. I was always one of those guys that, having come up sort of as someone who had to really tackle some extreme challenges. Some things happened to one of my sisters at a very young age that I won't get extremely detailed about on this call out of respect for her, but we had to live through that as a family. And, those bonds, and sometimes tragedy brings you much closer. And it helps you better understand the value of those relationships. So through those tragedies at a very young age and working at a very young age, I understood that, hey, sometimes these key players, these stakeholders in your life are going to help build what you have. I'm a big believer that, look, you have some people who build better, who build stronger, who can accomplish a lot of things on their own. But the reality is there is nobody in this life who accomplishes everything without the great help of others. And I'm a firm believer in that. I have been very fortunate to have some tremendous partnerships in my life. I wasn't a big believer, Meredith, in partnerships in my younger days of building business. I don't know if it was pride. I don't know if it was ego. I don't think it was, but maybe I was just younger and dumber. But as I've gotten older, I've recognized the value in great partnerships because, look, I know what I'm very talented at. I know what I'm not talented at. And finding those people, like take, for instance, Juan Rodas, who is my business partner at New Story Lending, there are things that he does on his side of the house that I could spend the rest of my life doing, and I'm probably never going to be quite that good. And I think he recognizes as well, there are things that I do on my side of the house that he could spend the rest of his career doing, and he's never going to quite be that good. So I think whenever you remove ego and pride from the equation and you understand the talents of others and you build that secure, trustworthy relationship, then it helps you build business. And frankly, it makes it easier from the perspective that you don't have to do it all. Business isn't easy. Entrepreneurship is hard. It's a lot of hard work. And you gotta understand that going into it. But having people in your corner that have your back, it just makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it certainly does. And especially as you've mentioned, just that, sometimes we have I don't know, an area that we're strong in, but there's areas where we're not. And recognizing that we need others and building it together and then watching it, grow and be successful. I really want to break down into kind of understanding your two different companies. So you've got the financial area that you have just started with New Story Lending. And then it's also as a founder of the Miller Companies. Just tell me about those two and where they kind of merge and how this all started.
Sure. It all started when I was in high school and I thought I knew what I wanted to do, but I really didn't. I thought that in the ninth grade, 10th grade, I thought I wanted to be a cardiologist. And then all of a sudden in the 11th grade, I thought I wanted to be an attorney. And then in the 12th grade, I said, look, I've shadowed both of these fields and realized I didn't really want to do either. So I said, what am I going to do? I've always been this guy who knew exactly what I wanted to do in life. And here I am in the 11th, 12th grade. And I'm like, what in the world am I going to do? It all started, this endeavor started that we now call the housing economy that I find my place in when I was a greeter over 20 years ago now at a local bank. So we had a local bank here in the community in which I live, or grew up in rather, and it was a community bank. I was very fortunate to get hired. I formerly worked for a nonprofit organization. I was a young director, just under 20 years old in that organization. So I was coming from being a director, and I said, what in the world do I want to do with my life? Maybe banking's where to go. I had a really good friend whose dad was the president of the bank. And I said, well, I should get a pretty good entry-level position here. And I did get an entry-level position. I was the greeter. So I started out as the greeter of the bank. And it truly is, you walked in the front door, I was the guy sitting there handing out drinks and cookies as the greeter. So I started at quite literally the lowest level in the bank. And of course, rose from there. Fast forward a couple, 2-3 years, I got into the mortgage department, absolutely fell in love with it. I understood very quickly that, hey, this is really the sales side of the bank. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the numbers. I enjoyed the relationships probably more than anything because it gave me an opportunity to meet and talk to a lot of people and to really help support and drive revenue for the organization. Then the crash happened. This was probably 2003, 2004. We had 3 great years of, hey, if you had a pulse, you could come in the bank and get money. And then 2008 happened, and we all know for the next 4 years or so, not a lot happened in the financial sector after that because of the crash. And so I like to tell people I was in this business crash, post-crash, pre-COVID, post-COVID. Right?
Yeah.
We've seen a lot in the last 21, 22 years, Meredith. But during that time, in the midst of the military and everything else, I started a construction company. My construction company is roughly 15 years old now. So probably it came about 5 years after I got into banking. And then after I started the construction company and built the construction company and started building my rental portfolio and everything that was investment and construction related while still participating in banking, I started an insurance company. So I have the Miller Companies is really just a conglomerate of construction, insurance, investment portfolios, development, everything on that in that sector of the housing economy. And then, of course, we have New Story Lending. So New Story was created in 2022. We launched in June of 2023. We're extremely proud in saying that within 90 days, we had agency approval. We were fully delegated. We were building our licenses in multiple states. We were profitable within 90 days in an environment where most banks were showing losses. We've come a long way in a very short time. And you mentioned the run rate a little bit earlier, and we continue to build. And it's something that we're very proud of. And that's why we call ourselves barrier breakers.
Yeah. Wow. What a diverse background with all of those kind of combined. How do you, in all of that, or what are you focused on most today that you really say, hey, this is really where my most energy goes to? Where is that in all of this?
Well, my energy, I'm a dad. I'm a girl dad of 2 girls, right?
Yeah.
So I have a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old. So I would say that a lot of my energy is spent with my daughters, but I have an incredible wife And I'll tell you, you talk about partnerships and you talk about, having that relationship and that strength. I'll be the first to tell you, I do not have nearly enough pride to say that it would be impossible to do what I do without Leanne by my side and having the help that I had at home. She's a tremendous mama and just a great caretaker. And with her help, I'm able to just focus on what I do. So I want to start by saying that. But I stand by my faith, and the proudest thing that I do will always be being just a great husband and a dad to my daughters. That's where I find probably my most pride. But beyond that, in business, strictly to business, it goes back to the discipline and the resolve that I mentioned earlier on in the conversation. Is the reality is you're never finished. You're never finished. And you have to understand that going into it. I think a lot of people, Meredith, when they get into business, especially at a higher level, when they get to the executive level, they think that, okay, I'm going to be able to sit back, prop my feet up, and now I own a business. I'm a business owner. Truth is, when you own a business, it really is, it's reality that it gets lonely at the top, because you burn the midnight oil. I get up early. I go to bed late. I have to work it all in during the day. I do the things with my daughters and my family, and then I find myself back online when they're in bed working more. But I take pride in that. I value that. And that's the thing. I think you have to love what you do. When you love what you do, then it's really not work. I love building. I love helping people. It's one of the passions in my life to take care of my community and to take care of those we serve.
Yeah. And I resonate with all of that, especially laying the foundation of what's important. And that is your biggest investment, which is your family. And that was a stewardship that you've been given, and how you manage that is going to be reflected in your business as well. And even in Wise Move, my whole foundation in my business as well is very faith-based. And so none of this it comes with a lot of hard work, but it comes also with the knowledge that this is above us. Anything that comes our way and how we steward that is really our relationship in response to what God has gifted us in that. And then how we treat other people, whether it's our family members, whether it's our clients, whether it's our colleagues, all of that is reflective of good stewardship of our lives and our business. So certainly love hearing your investment with your family and just recognition of how important that is in your life and treating it such. And then as you go into business, during your day-to-day business, being creative and understanding the hard work and discipline that it takes to build that. And I think certainly when it's your business and it rests with you, there is no rest, so to speak. It's constantly, if I don't make this work, if I don't do this work, if I don't lay the foundation and then continually build on that, it's not going to happen. It's just needs that work and effort in that you do. So I love hearing your energy in that. So you now, though, have built this, I guess you're focused in the finance area here in the new lending. And tell me a little bit about that, because we have been in such diverse markets, as you've mentioned, not only with the crash and then COVID, and now where we are, and so much is dependent upon what's happening around us politically and otherwise economically that is out of our control. So tell me a little bit about where your business is today, how you have grown that, how you're pivoting through some of these changes. Just give me a little more context to that if you can.
Oh, certainly. Well, Meredith, I think we can agree. You and I could sit here and do SWOT analyses for days with what's going on in the political climate and everything else right now in our industry with regulation, et cetera. Fed rates, all that good stuff. So, yeah, I mean, we're licensed in 36, almost 37 states and counting. There's a couple of states in the country that require brick and mortar, so we're just simply waiting on getting some production there. So we've grown quickly. We've grown very rapidly. And again, the testament really beyond what you and I discussed with our faith a little bit earlier and just really relying on God to help shepherd us in the right direction. But beyond that, look, I'll say it out loud. We have the best staff in the world. We have the best staff in the industry. And I am extraordinarily blessed with my partnership with my business partner and all of the staff that we have under our charge. We were very fortunate a lot of people called us crazy, frankly. Like, why in the world are you all starting this why are y'all starting this mortgage company in the bottom of the market, right? I mean, candidly, coming out of post-COVID, it was the worst market that we've seen. Some would even say, in some ways, worse than the crash. We knew the crash was coming. We knew what to expect out of the crash.
Right.
You know, you go from the top of the top from a volume and production perspective, generational production, if you will, during COVID to almost a halt immediately. You know, that started really in 22, I would say, 22, 23. But with that, what we were able to accomplish is, look, everybody was starting for volume. Our vendors needed the volume. We needed the volume. We needed the right staff. And some of that, Meredith, just got incredibly inflated during COVID. Folks were getting paid really more than the industry had ever commanded before. And really, we were moving in a very scary direction with compensation and revenue and contracts and what it was costing, just the cost to produce, that ultimately much of which got passed to the consumer, and it just wasn't good for the industry. So during the slowdown, a lot of that reset. So we were able to secure some great contracts with some great partners. We were able to hire some of the best staff in the industry that fortunately helped build our foundation and help propel us where we are today. And we just worked really hard and continue to do so to continue to build. You know, our sales fleet is amazing. We have some generational, foundational employees that I'll call them, and they've been with us from day one. We have folks that have been with us from day one in an industry where attrition easily tops 30 to 40% in the mortgage business. We are outpacing that by a tremendous amount, and I think that's a testament to our people.
Yeah. New story lending, though, you resonate with this, breaking barriers to home ownership. That's one of your titles. What does that look like? What does that look like in action? How are you different? How are you able to do that than other businesses in your industry?
Sure. Let me start by saying breaking barriers to home ownership is owned by New Story Lending. We trademarked it. So
Yeah, it's yours.
it is now trademarked, and I know other folks use it, and that's fine. But we've trademarked it because it's that important to us, and we believe in it that much, Meredith.
Mm-hmm.
So breaking barriers to home ownership. Juan and I came from some very, very diverse backgrounds. You know, I told you a little bit about mine a little earlier. I faced some tragedy at a very, very young age with some things that happened to my sister, the passing of my grandfather in 1996 when I was 12 years old, and he was really my dad, you know, my father figure. And coming up through that, the product of a single mom, very, very socioeconomically challenged, worked very, very hard for very little. The same is true of Juan. You know, he's from Ecuador, he's Hispanic. While he's comes from a multi-family culture, he also faced some pretty critical challenges in his life as well. And I think that's what makes us so great together, because we know what it looks like at the bottom and we know where we want to go towards the top. So breaking barriers to home ownership is exactly what it sounds like. We believe in our communities. We want to give back to our communities because we are products of the communities from which we came. We understand how difficult it can be to purchase a home, to get into housing, to participate in the housing economy if you're not educated. And because of that, we have an emphasis in the affordable housing community. I mean, yeah, we do everything from big jumbo loans on the lakes, the mountains, the beaches, down to the very, very low affordable housing community. And we genuinely put that emphasis on affordable housing because those are the communities that we came from. We come from affordable housing communities where we didn't know in many cases which couch we were going to sleep on next. So we believe with the right education, with hard work and discipline and resolve, that anybody in this country can achieve the dream of homeownership. And that's what it means to break barriers. Breaking that next barrier, whatever's in front of you that has to be broken down for you to achieve that dream.
So within that, I assume you're spending more unique opportunities with your clients. Are those conversations? Is that education? How are you able to break those barriers down personally with each client, or that comes from an automated process somewhat in lending, and make that very personalized, especially as you've grown? Are you able to have those one-on-one conversations, or what does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll never take away the one-on-one conversation and the relationship. I'm a big believer in relationships, and I think we're in a relationship business. So we really tailor the needs, Meredith, to the consumer. If you want to come to one of our offices and have that face-to-face, one-on-one conversation, we welcome that. We love talking to folks. We love getting you in the office, but we also have the tech stack where you don't have to. This is a generational thing at this point. There are different generations who like different things. There are some folks, frankly, we hardly ever talk to because they don't want to. Right? They do
Right.
everything online. They do everything through our mobile app, and they do their application that way. They upload their documents that way. They track their loan process that way. But absolutely, we encourage folks to come in and have that one-on-one if they need it. We also work on credit repair. We're not a credit repair agency, but we do have outlets where we can assist folks with that who are in need of that. But more times than not, you know what we find, Meredith? We find that it's the education. And that's why education is one of the pillars of new story lending, because there's so many consumers out there that can buy and they don't realize they can buy. They don't know. They come up, maybe they come from an environment or a community or a family that has never done it, and they just don't think they can as a result. But there's so many outlets and opportunities in the mortgage industry these days. We have housing down payment assistance programs, both on the state and federal levels. We have non-qualified mortgage products like you may have heard them called, your bank statement, your asset depletion, your DSCR loans. We really have a product for everyone. And I always like to tell folks, the answer may not be yes, it may be not now. I don't like to tell anybody no, because I do believe that if you work hard at that dream, you can achieve it. And anyone in this country can buy a home that puts their mind to it.
Yeah, education has always been the foundation too of my business. And as I approached it when I first started, it was really the focus on that first time home buyer, because I knew that they would be then purchasing the next home and the next home. But beyond that knowledge, just understanding that I remember when I was in their position and the what I didn't know that I didn't know, and it just didn't feel right, but I wasn't sure. And everything is just an unfamiliar, especially when I started. We didn't have Google, we didn't have everything to just quickly become an expert in. And so I can remember being at a closing table and, hey, you need $1,000 more. And I don't, what? Why? And we have $1,000 more. And just things that didn't feel right. So I determined when I became a realtor, those are the type of situations that I want to help my clients avoid. I want to set them up with success, with good lenders, with good lawyers, with everyone, inspection, everyone that's coming into that transaction, so that we're all learning and we're all growing. And then when they're at that closing table, they are confident of the decision that they're making. It's not just a transaction, quick, got that done, move on. But it's really that relationship building, and it starts with that education, because I love for them to feel confident about what they're doing, which is a huge investment. We are taking them into one of the biggest investments and most emotional, at times, investments that they're going through. So I love that your company is very focused too on that education and also breaking down roadblocks. I used to always tell my son, there's a roadblock. Sometimes that's there for our warning and back off, but other times it's also, okay, how do we go around, above, under, how do we don't just let this stop us and then just give up. We figure out if we can get around this. And so often, even in lending, there's situations as an agent that I have clients and I know I'm talking to them, but they don't know. So I want to hand them off to a trusted resource where they can get those answers. And it may look like a year down the road or 2 years, but they're starting to build that educational path towards that. And that ultimately then will resonate, hopefully, with a home ownership and within that. So I love that you guys are doing that, trying to achieve that. I think that's very important, more than just a quick mortgage process and like you said, I have clients that are senior citizens that want you to sit in person and talk with them. I have others that want text. I have young first-time home buyers that sometimes I have to stop them from Googling too much. Like, they come to me and I already have it figured out. I can just do this myself. And I'm like, there's processes, there's license law, there's so much in this that maybe you don't have figured out. So you needed a trusted advisor. So it's all part of that cultural and generational part of that too. So definitely understand it from that perspective. I would love to break down more. You talk about how you're trying to change it even in philanthropy. Tell me a little bit about what that looks like for your company.
Yeah, so we encourage all of our folks in the local communities that they serve because, look, we're a national company, Meredith, but we really like to bring it home. And so there's not a community that any of our staff is in, whether it's in California. We have folks out in California and Arizona, and obviously here in the Southeast and the Northeast. And really for us, what that looks like is not only are we going to lead the charge in giving back to the communities we serve on a corporate level, but we encourage everyone at News Story to do the same in their local communities. There's always something to be done. There's always service to be performed in our communities. And we just really encourage that. We give back, we're headquartered here in South Carolina and in local communities here. We have some organizations that we give back to pretty heavily. But then beyond that, it's also just community service. And it's just not just giving money, but also giving your time. And the same is true in Northeast. So I'm down in the Southeast. My business partner's in the Northeast. We have a strong presence out in the West as well. So we just encourage everybody, wherever they might be, to give back in a meaningful way.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you guys are investing in your different areas because it might look different for what each group wants to do and what they find valuable or necessary at that time. I know in my business as well, I moved from a private education group where I was doing marketing and advancement, and I loved having that feel of a private school, like I was in a ministry-based service. And when that changed over to real estate, I thought, I don't know, will I be able to still do that part that really is the heart of what I want to do ultimately is to serve others. And then realizing, yes, I have a front row seat now to see the real needs of each of my client. And I don't have to go back and ask, hey, can we do this? I can, in a moment, make a decision. Yeah, we can save you here. We can help you here. And then be able to see families, maybe they're going into full-time ministry, or maybe they're working for a nonprofit or some way that we can assist them, or maybe they just need some financial support and finding a pathway for that. So being able to give back and serving and ministering is so important. I think it's the bedrock of really good business and relationships with others. So I love that your company is also doing that and doing it so broadly. You have different divisions around the country. I would love for you to share just maybe a story or something that has happened in your business that that just really maybe are proud of, or just has really been something like, I am really glad we could do that. Is there some story that you have from your business that you can share with us?
Oh my goodness. Yes. Let me first say that, Meredith, I love that your company and that you believe in that ministry and giving back to. I think that, we all have a corporate responsibility to do that. And I love to hear when I'm talking to like-minded folks who believe the same. I could give you many stories, but I'm going to give you one that just occurred over the past couple of months. It really just happened 2 weeks ago or so, but it's been in progress for the past several months. So there is a client, and I would love to say her name. In fact, I think she'd probably want me to, but I'm not, just because I don't know for sure. But my wife and I attended an event that she put on. It was called Sacred Opera. And we sponsored it. New Story Lending sponsored it. We sponsored it because she was one of our past clients. And it was a sponsorship that in my mind was just something we were going to do to support the cause, something we were going to do to really support her as a past client. But you would have thought that we just went out and bought her a brand new car. I mean, it was a smaller sponsorship, at least in my mind. I said, we're going to do this to support, but my goodness, hopefully this helps move the needle. And I don't know that I ever expected the thankfulness and the gratitude that came from her. But prior to that, she was a client of ours, not of American nationality, at least at least at birth from what I know and understand. And she had never navigated this process before in a meaningful way. And she did a testimonial for us. She just talked about how easy we made the process, how great the communication was, the technology, and the fact that we were just willing to help her at the level that we did and give her that personal touch and provide that service, and then follow that up with a sponsorship to help her follow one of her dreams. You talking about heart-wrenching, tear-jerking, warming of the body type stuff. That's what it's about. And it was never intended to be that way. We were providing that because we just believe that's the right thing to do. But then when you have that reaction to it, it really is life-changing because it shows you that the work you're doing really makes a meaningful impact on the communities we serve. And I can tell you right now, if she hears this, she'll know that we will continue to support her endeavor going forward because she's become what I believe is going to be a lifelong friend now. But that all happened through a business transaction. So there are many stories like that. That's just the latest one that just happened. Yeah. But it's just always warms my heart when you talk to people and see folks like that just truly absorb and appreciate the American dream. I'll call it the American dream of homeownership. And she was one of those who genuinely appreciated the product, the service, the company, and then really us giving back to her organization after that. So it was just something amazing to be a part of.
Yeah, I love hearing that. Sometimes it's that cup of water that you give and you might not think much of it, but to someone else, it is life-changing and it's sustaining. And it was just what they needed to be encouraged themselves and to go, someone believes in me, someone's helping me, someone's supporting. We're all inundated these days with sales calls and with somebody wanting something from us. And then there are times in our lives that someone gives to us and helps. And maybe it seems small to them, but to us, it means the world because it just encourages us. It breathes into us new life and purpose. And certainly as we are on our journeys, when we take those opportunities to give, to help, even if it seems small, even a word of encouragement, it can change the course of a person's day, of their life, of all of that. So we never know. And taking opportunities of those paths we cross to impact them is so valuable. So Shane, I love hearing your story. I love hearing how you've started the business. I want to know, what is next up for your company? Because I have no doubt you have reimagined some whole new directions for the future. And given our current state where we are, where everyone is so focused in on rates and the mortgage industry, and right now we have so many pent-up buyers and sellers that are on the sidelines too. So I would love to hear what is next for your company and what encouragement do you have even for consumers on engaging the next days of the market ahead?
Sure. I'll preface this by saying we plan and God laughs, right?
Yeah.
So I'll preface by saying that we have a plan. We always strategically plan, and we have our 3 to 5 year plan and beyond. But look, I think that AI is going to change the industry in a big way. I'm not one of those that's in the camp today, Meredith. Call me tomorrow. I may change my mind if something comes out that's groundbreaking today. I don't necessarily think that it's going to take away the face-to-face, the relationships, because I do think there will always be folks who want that personal touch and that relationship-oriented transaction. But I do think that AI is going to help us in a tremendous way from the perspective that I think it's going to maximize efficiency, effectiveness, and productivity. I think that the underwriter today that's capable of doing 40, 50, 60 units a month can perhaps 1.5x, maybe 2x that. Hard to say. But I think it's also going to help from a processing perspective. I think operationally, it's going to have a tremendous overhaul on operations in the mortgage industry to include federal agencies and GSEs like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, because I think that their guidelines are going to be integrated in a more meaningful way and a more intentional way. So who's to say what exactly that's going to look like? But I think that's going to be a massive part of it. I think that the housing economy consuming as much of this country's GDP as it does is going to always be at the forefront of our economy. So it's important for us to continuously find ways to create more housing, to create more transactions, to create more affordable ways for that first-time home buyer to purchase their first home. I think that's multifaceted. I think that's rates, supply and demand. I think it's just the overall ease of assisting that buyer with that next transaction. As far as new story lending is concerned, we are already investing in the future. We're investing in AI. We're investing in the right staff. We're investing in the right posture to take on whatever that next chapter of the housing economy looks like. And we'll be very, very prepared for it when it comes.
Yeah. And certainly AI does help streamline so many processes. What AI fails to do is build relationships. And that will always be a critical, I think, part of very successful business in terms of how we build relationships, how we deal with one another. So I think we have to kind of balance that whole approach to it and how we look forward in the future. But I love that new story lending is there at the cutting edge and incorporating AI as its needs and will help you do more, but then also stay with your people in the relationships and breaking down those barriers, because each potential homeowner has a different need, has a different story. And so within all of that, there still has to be that human touch that is able to resonate and to walk them through that path.
Right.
I have loved having you on. Yeah, I love having you on, Shane. I love that we've been able to just touch the tip of the iceberg of all that you have come through and your company is doing. And I would love for people to be able to have a direct contact to you. Can you share with us, as we close today's session, where people can find you and how they can reach out to you best?
Yeah, Meredith, thank you for that. I appreciate that plug. I think the best way is through our website. If you want to learn more about us at www.newstorylending.com. Obviously, you can contact our office directly at 866-497-7005 is our corporate line. You can find us on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Facebook, all of the major social media outlets. But if you really just want to learn more about our company and who we are and what we represent, our website at newstorylending.com is a great starting point.
That's great. And I appreciate your approach. I appreciate that you guys are breaking down the barriers to home ownership. It is an amazing thing to help a family to get that ability to own their own home. And I know in my job, and I know you as well, that we've experienced that. And there's nothing like having that front row seat at that table and seeing that happen. So thank you, Shane, for your contribution in that and for your work and your testimony and for all the stewardship that you're providing in that area. Thanks for being my guest today.
Thank you, Meredith. You were an awesome host, and I appreciate your hospitality, and I hope you have an awesome week.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to Wise Move. I hope today's episode provided you with the tools and insights you need to confidently navigate your real estate, community, and life journey. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and please share this podcast with friends and family who are making their own moves. Stay connected for more real estate insights, and remember, every great move starts with a wise move.